So without further ado, we'll just start in on the webinar on SNAP work requirements. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. I'm seeing some familiar names and some familiar faces. Really glad to see that. For those of you who I've not yet had the chance to connect with, nice to meet you. My name is Wafam. I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the Deputy Secretary for the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services, Office of Income Maintenance, or OIM for short. In this capacity, I oversee the administration of DHS's broad portfolio of public assistance programs that help nearly 3 million Pennsylvanians meet their most basic needs and help set them up for success. Programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, I'm sure, is very heavy on your minds, Medicaid and Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and a whole other alphabet soup of other programs, all again designed to help Pennsylvanians in need. My day-to-day includes developing policy that aligns with federal and state laws to govern these programs. It includes managing the infrastructure to deliver those core services, like our workforce of nearly 7,000 public servants across the Commonwealth who are directly supporting public assistance applicants. And it also includes the back-end infrastructure to make all of that work possible, like IT systems, facilities, reporting, and quality control work. So lots of things. And I think it's very fair to say that over the last 11 months, we've seen the core mission work to support Pennsylvanians most in need be deeply disrupted by federal policy changes. And I'm here today to talk about what some of those changes specifically mean for food assistance through the SNAP program. It's a major change in our program as it relates to the enforcement of statewide work requirements as a condition of eligibility for SNAP. But before we get into that, I do want to take a few minutes off the top to address a different major federal impact on our work that I'm sure has been very heavy on your minds. I am certain that the folks on this call have been fielding questions from your constituents, and I know you all have been acting very quickly to respond to them as best as you can. With Congress's failure to pass a federal budget, appropriations lapsed on October 1, just 6 short, maybe long weeks ago. In Pennsylvania, SNAP food assistance is 100% federally funded, which means that DHS has been unable to distribute benefit payments starting October 16th of this year for the nearly 2 million hungry Pennsylvanians that we serve. And for the nearly 38,000 grocers and food merchants and other food retailers that SNAP invests in our communities across the Commonwealth. And this was the case of halting those SNAP payments, even though DHS continued to accept and process applications and enforce all of the existing eligibility rules, including those work requirements we're going to dive more deeply in just a minute. Really happy to say that after tireless work over the last month to advocate for, and that includes active litigation to access full SNAP benefits, with the federal government reopening late Wednesday night and reauthorizing federal funding for SNAP, DHS was given the go-ahead to distribute payments, and I am so pleased to share this morning that our teams worked quickly to get the job done, and as of just before midnight last night, every single Pennsylvanian who is expecting a November SNAP payment has been paid in full. We mobilized quickly and did not take our feet off of the gas pedal. We issued nearly $276 million in 11 hours, and some people started receiving their payments early afternoon yesterday, and for families who went to bed last night without a benefit, they woke up this morning with funds to go to the grocery store. We knew how important it was and how urgent the need was. We did not take our foot off of the gas pedal. And again, I am so happy to share this morning that, again, every Pennsylvanian who is expecting a November SNAP payment has been paid in full. We're really happy to deliver this much needed relief. And suffice it to say, while the federal budget bill leaves much to be desired, I'm grateful that at least some of the chaos and confusion for the people that we serve can take a back seat, and maybe we can focus on some other things. Lord knows DHS's work is not done. And so today we are redirecting our attention to previous priorities. And the topic that brings us here today is a walkthrough for SNAP work requirements and changes to them as a result of federal law changes from earlier this summer. I want to walk us through what SNAP recipients and your constituents must do to maintain their eligibility and what kinds of communications they can expect to hear from DHS. So first, just a very, very quick primer. So the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, formerly way back when known as food stamps, is most known for its monthly food assistance. In Pennsylvania, as I said before, we support nearly 2 million Pennsylvanians. That's 1 in 6 Pennsylvanians. And just for context, around the country, SNAP helps nearly 42 million people feed themselves and their families. That's nearly 1 in 8 people. And this food assistance comes as a monthly payment deposited on a special debit card, or an EBT card, that can only be used to purchase food at federally authorized EBT retailers. Now, there are some exclusions of what people can purchase, like people cannot buy hot or prepared foods, no alcohol. And with the expansion of the federal Make America Healthy Again initiative, some states are requesting waivers to block SNAP purchases for certain items like sugary drinks. Pennsylvania is not yet at that place. I also want to highlight that there are some lesser known SNAP services from aside from the monthly food assistance. So SNAP recipients can also engage in workforce development programs to help them build in-demand job skills, earn industry recognized credentials, receive job placement services, and receive needs-based grants that help people continue to participate in job training or to go to work, like transportation or childcare assistance. So it's a really well-rounded program that is thoughtfully designed to provide immediate assistance and also help set people up for long-term success. Now, to be eligible for SNAP, people need to meet several financial and non-financial criteria, all of which are assessed by DHS during the initial SNAP application and ongoing recertification, and certainly in the time periods in between. So for example, a household of one, their max income limit is about $2,500 a month to be eligible for SNAP. Another example, a household must live in Pennsylvania, be a Pennsylvania resident, for Pennsylvania DHS to consider them eligible. And now, of course, certain households must now meet work requirements to maintain their SNAP eligibility. And to say the least, these rules are complex. Even within all of these rules, and before we have come to a place where we have to enforce work requirements statewide, I do want to say briefly that I'm incredibly proud of the work that we have done to ensure that SNAP is as accessible as possible in Pennsylvania. We are one of the largest SNAP programs in the country. Again, we support nearly 2 million Pennsylvanians. And outside of, by definition, SNAP recipients being low income, the vast majority of our recipients can be considered vulnerable. Nearly 35% of our recipients are children. Nearly 25% of our recipients are older adults or adults over the age of 55 years. Nearly 11% of our recipients have a documented disability. And I raise this because HR 1's passage, you'll hear me synonymously refer to HR 1 or One Big Beautiful Bill Act. With its passage, it requires us to expand work requirements for SNAP. And we know, based off of performance in other assistance programs that have implemented work requirements, and even in our short enforcement of work requirements here in Pennsylvania, we know that work requirements are likely to create major access challenges for Pennsylvanians who need SNAP to feed their families. Let's dive straight on in. Starting here, so SNAP recipients who must meet work and reporting requirements, I am pleased to start socializing this with you all, will now be known as PEERS, or Pennsylvanians with Employment or Engagement Requirements. You likely have heard in the public discourse over the last year the term ABOD, able-bodied adult without dependent. Pennsylvania DHS at this time is rolling out a different term, PEERS, again, Pennsylvanians with Employment or Engagement Requirements, because we do believe that it is much more descriptive to the population that we are seeking to engage here. And PEERS include working age individuals who do not meet an exemption and are now subject to this expansion of work requirements through HR 1. So when we talk about work requirements, we are talking about meeting a certain number of hours as a condition to maintain eligibility. So PEERS now must meet that work requirement or qualify for an exemption or lived in a waived geography, if in fact a waiver is available. If a peer does not meet an exemption or meet a specific work requirement, They are limited in their receipt of SNAP for just 3 months over the course of a 3-year time period. SNAP recipients who are not meeting that work requirement or meet an exemption do have an opportunity to come into compliance and start working to meet the requirement or to qualify for an exemption over time. So it's not a one and done at initial application or initial recertification. People can over time come into compliance. So we've got some major changes that were delivered to our program just earlier this year. I have to keep on reminding myself, HR 1, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, was signed into law on July 4th, 2025. That was just 4 short months ago. And with HR 1's passage, again, it makes major changes to the SNAP program, not the least of which including expansion of work requirements for certain SNAP recipients. What those changes in broad strokes means that there are changes to the availability of geographic waivers that states and state SNAP agencies like Pennsylvania DHS can apply for. It means that there are changes to who must meet the work requirements. So the definition of an ABOD are now here in Pennsylvania appear. And it also makes changes to previously available exemptions from the work requirement. First and foremost, HR 1 changed the criteria to waive SNAP work requirements based on an area's unemployment rate or job availability. For years, Pennsylvania has qualified in part or in full for a federal waiver to, again, waive work requirements in certain geographies. Now with HR 1's passage, 0 counties in Pennsylvania qualify. So that automatically means with passage of HR 1, statewide, we must begin enforcing work requirements. Secondarily, to keep or become eligible for SNAP benefits, now there are certain people who must meet work requirements. Those work requirements can include, as it states, working. It can also include volunteering or participating in an education or training program for at least 20 hours a week, or a total or up to 80 hours each month. And not only do people need to meet that working or job training or participating in an education programming or volunteering at a certain hour requirement, SNAP recipients also need to tell DHS that they are meeting that requirement. They must report to DHS that they are working, that they are volunteering, enrolled in an institution of higher education or job training. They have to tell us. And as of September 1st, these rules apply to SNAP recipients who are between the ages of 18 to 54, do not have a dependent child under 18, and are considered physically and mentally able to work. Now, I want everyone to buckle in. I'm about to share a different date with you all. These are the rules that applied as of September 1st, when existing waivers for Pennsylvania expired. The individuals that I've outlined here, again, individuals between the ages of 18 and 54, do not have a dependent child under the age of 18, and are considered physically and mentally able to work. Those were the previous definitions for an ABOD. The definitions for those who must meet a SNAP work requirement before HR 1 expanded the definition of an ABOD. We have, I gave you preview, I'm sorry, I asked you all to buckle in your seats. Now we have a different set of rules and a different definition and a new date. HR 1's passage earlier this summer now changed, again, the definition of who must meet and is subject to SNAP work requirements. It changed the age range, and it also removed several exemptions. That now means that more people must comply with work requirements. These changes started on November 1st for new SNAP applicants. If you are an existing SNAP recipient, you will become subject to the SNAP work requirement unless you meet an exemption at the date of your next renewal. So I want to highlight some exemptions that are changing. There are SNAP recipients that qualify for an exemption from the work requirement, meaning they do not need to meet the work requirement. This is what used to be our exemption. So it used to be the case that if you are under the age of 18 or 55 years or older, if you were in a household with a child, again, under the age of 18, if you were a veteran, or if you were in former foster care or individual who aged out of the system, age 18 to 24, those used to be qualifying exemptions. That is no longer the case. Now we have new exemption rules. Again, we have changed the age range. Work requirements have now expanded to include 55 to 64-year-olds. That means if you are between the age of 18 to 65, you may now be subject to a work requirement as a condition of your eligibility to SNAP. HR 1 has also changed the definition of a dependent, whereas before it used to be a dependent was 18 years or younger. The definition has now changed to being under 14. So if a child is 14 years or older, the guardian or parent must now meet work requirements. And now, sadly, veterans are no longer exempt from SNAP work requirements. Sadly, former foster youth aged 18 to 24 are no longer exempt solely on those criteria. So walked you through some things that are changing. There are some exemptions that remain. So if you are disabled or currently receiving disability benefits, and that includes benefits from the VA, you may qualify from an exemption from the SNAP work requirement. If you are unable to work due to a medical condition that prohibits you from working, again, you may qualify for an exemption from the work requirement. If you are pregnant, receiving TANF or unemployment benefits, serving as a caregiver, or are temporarily unemployed and are expecting to return to work within 60 days, you may continue to qualify for an exemption. I do want to caveat here that some exemptions may require additional verification. Again, DHS takes very seriously our charge to streamline access as much as we can, while of course verifying information that is questionable. We want to make sure that people who we are determining eligible are in fact eligible. There are times that our DHS caseworkers may need to request additional information, and we certainly are asking for SNAP recipients and applicants to be responsive to those requests. If your constituents or SNAP recipients that you are engaging with have questions about whether or not they meet an exemption, or simply have questions about what exemptions are, certainly want to encourage folks to contact their county assistance office. Now, I'm seeing very quickly a question in the chat about individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So it is correct that HR 1 removed the federal exemption for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. Pennsylvania DHS is using our discretion in other policy interpretations to confer, where we can, exemptions for certain groups of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. The best way, I would say, for people to identify whether or not they must meet the work requirement is to check out our website. Again, there's sort of a special asterisk around the subsection of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. Again, HR 1 did remove that federal exemption. Pennsylvania DHS is using its discretion, again, within existing federal and state policy, to confer exemptions for some individuals who are experiencing homelessness. There are some technicalities on lines and bounds that we need to keep within to confer that kind of exemption. The best way to evaluate if you are working with a SNAP recipient or a constituent would be to connect with the department to evaluate their condition. So again, I mentioned before, there may be points in time where a caseworker may need to verify that someone meets or qualifies for an exemption. For most qualifying conditions or criteria, a SNAP recipient can simply tell their caseworker that they qualify. Caseworkers may have to verify exemptions electronically through various data sources that we have available, but there are other specific times that a caseworker may need to request additional verification. And that may be if someone indicates that they are disabled or have a medical condition that says that they are unable to work. There's a specific form that we need people to fill out and return back to us. It's our SNAP medical exemption form. This is a form that is available online on DHS's website, and certainly want to encourage the folks on this call who are working actively with constituents, with SNAP recipients, to access this form. And certainly, again, another very key place where we DHS or the caseworker will require proof or documentation is if in fact someone is meeting their work requirements. We of course need proof that they are meeting their work requirements, either through work, through volunteering, or through enrollment in a job training program. So I've walked you all through now what work requirements are, who must meet them, what exemptions exist, how people may qualify for them, how they may document them to DHS. So again, if someone meets that criteria as being the definition of a peer and does not qualify for an exemption, or is not meeting that 20-hour a week or 80-hour a month work requirement, then they are subject to that 3-month time limit. That means that they can only access SNAP for 3 months over a 3-year time period, and that is it, unless they begin complying with that work requirement. So it is super important now to turn our attention to what SNAP recipients can do to avoid losing that benefit. So first step, again, is identifying whether or not a SNAP recipient qualifies for an exemption. So for that September 1 implementation date that I referenced before, DHS took steps to contact our existing SNAP recipients to identify whether or not they may qualify for an exemption. So we sent out mailers with a form called a CM558. You see a little snippet of it on your screen right now. You can also find this on our website. We issued these mailers who lived in areas that lost that geographic waiver as of 9/1 to get information and identify whether or not someone might qualify for an exemption. It's very important that if you get this survey, if you hear about your constituents or SNAP recipients have questions about the survey, it is not an eligibility determination, but it is an important opportunity for DHS to get information from someone to see whether or not they qualify for an exemption. Very much so encourage people to respond and return this form. Get it back to DHS to see if we may be able to confer an exemption to you from the work requirement. Minus exemptions, there are other ways, of course, to comply with the work requirement, which is meeting. So peers can meet their work requirement either by working 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. That kind of work can include work for pay. It can include in-kind work. It can include unpaid work. And again, that work, the meeting those hours, must be verified and submitted in documentation to DHS during the application process and at renewal. Peers can also meet their work requirement by participating in a work program, again, for 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. That engagement in a work program can include enrollment within a DHS-sponsored SNAP employment and training program. It can include enrollment in a WIOA, a workforce development sponsored program, and certain other workforce programs that we are trying to expand availability to as quickly as we can. In most cases, for people who are enrolled in this type of programming, DHS can verify electronically that someone is enrolled. That requires little action or verification solely on the part of the SNAP recipient. Other ways that people can meet their work requirement is enrolling into an institution of higher education, in a college or a technical school, and students must be enrolled at least half-time. And last but not least, peers can meet their work requirement by volunteering. This can be done alone, again, for 20 hours a week or up to 80 hours a month, or it can be done in combination with work or enrollment in a work program to meet the overall work requirement. So that could be, for instance, I am working 15 hours a week because that is the nature of my job. I simply cannot get enough hours. People can make up the other 5 hours for a total of 20 hours a week by volunteering, for instance. And there's a specific form that we are asking for SNAP recipients or host organizations or community-based organizations who are hosting a volunteer to fill out, again, to document and verify to the Department of Human Services that someone is volunteering. And that is verified through our PA 1938 form. Okay, so let's talk avenue number 1. Peers may be exempt if they are working in a job and earning wages of $217.15 per week or more before taxes. And if you're saying, whoa, I just thought that you told me that someone needs to be working 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. That is mostly true. And like all things, as we administer public assistance programs, SNAP, of course, included, the devil is in fact in the details. For simplicity's sake, we have been talking about the hours requirement for work to be 20 hours a week or up to 80 hours a month. That is not always the case. Could be possible that someone could be working, say, 15 hours or 30 hours, not necessarily 20. And I think the question remains is, well, what does that mean for the person? We've included a very handy chart here to help people kind of walk through, again, what about my unique circumstance? What about my household's unique circumstance? So the best proxy here, again, peers may be exempt if they are earning wages of $217.50 per week or more before taxes. This applies even if they're not working 20 hours per week. Again, the best way to assess in unique circumstances for your household is to discuss with your caseworker, either at initial SNAP application or during your renewal period. I know these rules are complex. We are absolutely here to serve and be helpful in walking people through in individual circumstances what it means for them. I mentioned that another way that people can meet their work requirement is by enrolling in a DHS sponsored SNAP employment or training program. When I say a DHS sponsored employment and training program, I mean simply this. We are incredibly proud and have invested over time for years a portfolio of employment and training programs that are specifically designed to help SNAP recipients increase their economic mobility opportunities. These are programs that we have vetted with and have as a part of our state plan that is approved by the federal government, a litany of employment and training programs, again, designed to help SNAP recipients either connect to education and training programs, to earn industry recognized credentials, or receive job placement supports. A couple of these programs are KEYS, Keystone Education Yield Success, which is a partnership with Pennsylvania Department of Education and community colleges throughout the Commonwealth. This is a program that is designed to support people earning their associate's degree or an industry recognized credential. We also sponsor the EARN program of the Employment Advancement Retention Network. That is a partnership with local workforce development boards that, again, are designed to provide holistic job assistance support, job training throughout the Commonwealth. And then last but not least, we have our SNAP JETS program, formerly known as SNAP 50, which is a partnership with a wide array of community-based organizations that are smaller in scale, but much more intense in the type of job training and credential bearing programs that they provide for SNAP recipients. For folks who are interested in meeting their work requirement through enrollment in a SNAP ENT or employment and training program, encourage people please to visit our website, dhs.pa.gov/work, on ways that people can connect and enroll in these programs. That website is also a very helpful tool to getting information about all of the things that I am covering today. Again, who is a peer, how people may meet their work requirement, and what forms people must report back to DHS. And I'm slightly erroneous on this slide. I am pleased to share that we now do, this is not coming soon, it is now live, an option on panavigate.org is a place for community-based organizations, nonprofits, to claim and list a volunteer opportunity. This information is accessible to the public, of course, including SNAP recipients and all the folks on this call who are assisting constituents can visit this website to identify volunteer opportunities for people to meet their work requirement. We are also, DHS is also in the process of certifying more employment and training programs, again, as a way to meet this moment, as a way to meet demand. I want to talk briefly about, again, the how. So we've talked about, again, who is subject to the work requirement, how they must meet it, and now moving forward, what people must do to tell DHS that they are meeting that work requirement. So verification, proof for documentation must be submitted to a caseworker, and they can do that in a number of ways. People who prefer and are able to utilize our self-service options online may do so by using our Compass website or our My Compass PA mobile application that's available on Apple and Android. And of course, for people who are either not able or not as comfortable with doing this kind of verification submission online or through self-service, can of course do so in person at any of our 92 county assistance offices across the Commonwealth, or drop them off or through mail. Work verification itself can include pay stubs that lists pay and hours. Volunteer verification can happen through, again, that form that I referenced before, the PA 1938. All of these forms, you don't have to run to scribble, you don't have to run to print them off. If you are unable to do so, you can find them online at our website, again, dhs.pa.gov/work. You can also find copies of them at the county assistant's office. Would, of course, always greatly appreciate if your constituent services or local district offices are also able to have a couple of these forms on hand at the ready for SNAP recipients who may need them. And as always, I know that these rules are incredibly complex. The devil has always been in the details. So if people that you are engaging with have questions, or if you yourself have questions that are related to the unique circumstances of a SNAP household's just composition, we are happy to work through it with people. We're happy to answer questions either in person or through our statewide customer service center. Both of the phone lines are listed here for our statewide or Philadelphia only callers. We have also launched a new tool on our website, again, dhs.pa.gov/work. That is a easy to walk through screener or a questionnaire. They're simple questions that help guide people through, and with responses can help determine whether or not someone must meet the work requirement. It is not an eligibility form. We are not recording the data that comes from that form. It is simply a way for people, either SNAP recipients, people who are interested in applying, or of course, human services helpers like yourselves, to walk people through the various kind of criteria that may be involved with determining whether someone may be required to meet the work requirement. So you do not have to remember all of this. That easy screener tool is now live on our website. It is, I hope, easy to use. Certainly wanted to launch that as a tool by popular demand. Okay, so want to walk folks through what kinds of communications that SNAP recipients can expect to receive from DHS. Notices will go out to peers who must meet a work requirement about potential exemptions. Again, that form CM558 that I referenced before, it is a survey. It is not an eligibility determination. It is an attempt of DHS to get more information from a SNAP recipient to determine whether or not they qualify for an exemption. And if in fact they qualify for an exemption, again, it is exactly what it sounds like. It means that they are exempt from and therefore do not need to meet the work requirement. If a person does not meet work rules or an exemption, a single member household will receive from DHS a mailed notice at 3 months telling them that their SNAP will end. If they are a multi-member household, in most cases, they may see a reduction in their benefit as a result, again, of not coming into compliance with that work requirement. I have to take a moment here for a PSA within a PSA and ask for your help to amplify this message that SNAP recipients should keep their address up to date with DHS and with the U.S. Postal Service. DHS, with all of the public assistance programs that we manage, of course, including SNAP, we will not make changes to your case without notifying you. If we need you, a SNAP recipient, to take action, we will tell you through writing in the mail. We cannot reasonably expect for a SNAP recipient to take action based off of a piece of mail that they receive if they don't receive it. So it is so important for people to keep their address up to date, again, with DHS and with the U.S. Postal Service. We've talked a lot about the changes to work requirements and that we think that it is likely to have an impact on access to SNAP. To make sure that we are thinking holistically about the people that we serve and ensure that people who are in need of immediate food assistance have the resources that we need. I imagine, again, regardless of whether or not you are a SNAP recipient or a SNAP applicant or simply just a Pennsylvanian who is in need, that these are resources that your district offices could use. So I want to highlight again, there are ways that people can find local help through the Charitable Food Network. You can access through easily search for your local geography through panavigate.org. You could call 211 or visit the pa211.org website, or of course the feedingpa.org website. I want to highlight that all of this information during this webinar today is information likely that will evolve as we continue to provide more resources for our communities. Sitting here today, we do have helpful information and toolkits for people who are looking to help others. So we have a communications toolkit that is available on our website. And again, you'll hear me plug this over and over again. We're going to continue to add content to it. dhs.pa.gov. This website includes information about, again, what SNAP work requirements are, how people may meet them, resources, etc. It includes communication toolkits with social media graphics, how-to explainers like how to use Compass, how to add documentation, how to verify that you're meeting a work requirement, and other posting language for social media graphics to amplify this message. Again, I cannot stress enough how much of a major change in policy that statewide enforcement of work requirements is for our program here in SNAP. And with all things and major changes, the number one struggle is to make sure that people are even aware of these changes and that they deeply understand them. And so everyone on this call and for others who are listening through this webinar later really could use your help amplifying good, accurate information to our constituents. And so accessing information through our website is one way. You can also sign up for our new Substack, pennsylvaniadhs.substack.com, for, again, more frequent updates and ways that you can help your constituents. So in total, I always like to end these sessions with, what do people need to do right now? If you are advising a SNAP recipient, 4 things. I want to make sure that we are telling SNAP recipients to report to Pennsylvania DHS if they may qualify for an exemption. Check out that form CM558, get it back to DHS. We want to make sure that SNAP recipients are keeping their contact information, specifically their address, up to date with DHS and the US Postal Service. They can download our free and secure MyCompass PA mobile application, again, for folks who are willing and able to engage in self-service options. And of course, they can sign up for electronic notices and texts from the Department of Human Services. They can do so through dhs.pa.gov/text. I think we have a little bit of time for questions. I am seeing some questions rolling in the chat. I'm seeing a question here: with the new requirements that took effect November 1st, do you have data on the number of people who are in jeopardy of losing SNAP benefits? What, if any, is the grace period before SNAP benefits terminate for them? So first is the data question. So for individuals who became subject to the work requirement as of November 1st, I don't have that data quite yet. I literally will have it next week. And so for those of you who are watching through the webinar, DHS anticipates having data for how many people became subject to the work requirement or whose 3-month clock started on November 1st. I should have that data the week of November 17th. So we'll come back in circle to answer that question. The second question was about a grace period. So something I do want to highlight, and again, I failed to mention this at the top of the call. Yesterday afternoon, that's November 13th, 2025, DHS received guidance from the USDA in light of the reopening of the federal government. That guidance from USDA, that's our federal oversight partner for the SNAP program, provided instructions on how to immediately begin 100% full benefit payment, but it also included a sort of offering of grace because we were not able to distribute November payments the way that they should have been distributed. USDA is authorizing states to offer grace for the month of November. That means that the entirety of the month of November is not a countable month against that 3-month time limit. So I'll put this in a very practical example. For individuals who started, who needed to comply with the work requirement as of September 1st, if their 3-month clock started on September 1st, right? September, October, November, if they did not qualify for an exemption or were not meeting the work requirement by either working, volunteering, being enrolled in a job training program, etc., the earliest that they could have lost their SNAP eligibility would have been December. Now, with the guidance that we received yesterday from USDA offering November as a grace period, meaning that it is not a countable month. That date of when someone may lose their SNAP eligibility for lack of compliance or not meeting an exemption shifts from December now to January. DHS will not provide notification to individuals about that grace period. We will simply notify people when they are likely to close their SNAP receipt for noncompliance. Okay, I have run through as much as I can in the hour that we have. I'm seeing questions about some more specific questions. We are certainly happy to follow up with specific responses to the questions in the chat that I did not get to today. We will be sharing the slide deck with folks, and again, want to appreciate or want to express my appreciation for the fact that that this webinar could be organized so quickly, and that it has been recorded for dissemination for the folks who are not able to join us today. Again, on behalf of DHS and for the nearly 2 million SNAP recipients that we serve, I want to thank you all for coming together for this session, for asking really good questions, for taking the time to learn, and helping us amplify, again, good, accurate information to SNAP recipients during this time of significant transition.